at ya, coming at ya. Bomb style disaster, coming at ya, at ya. Tell you what's master, coming at ya.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for tuning into the art of balancing it all. I am Pam Thompson-Smith, also known as The Firm.
And I am TT Lyle Ellis, aka the Ambassador of Buzz.
Well, we're back another week. Wow, it goes along real quick now, and I'm so excited to be back. Like this, with so much going on, you know what? This is one of my highlights, to be back, to be joined with the host with the most, the beautiful TT. So I'm excited to be back. It's still a lot going on. It's been, another emotional week, with tributes to George Floyd. And, we still are in COVID-19. Yes. Believe it or not, sometimes it doesn't feel like it if we look outside, but we are still within COVID-19. So it's just been an emotional couple weeks. So I've tried to figure out how do I channel, my emotions, because I still have a lot of fear, just emotional with what went on with the violence against George Floyd. I have a lot of Black men in my life that I love. I have nephews, daddy, my brother-in-laws, my friends. What do I do? So, I do what I do best, what I love to do, and that's event planning. So for the last couple of weeks, just trying to figure out what could we do. So I was able to do an event on last Friday with two of my favorite organizations, the Triangle Martin Luther King Committee. So we've started some critical conversations. So I did that last week. And then this week we did a rally. We did a memorial to George Floyd at the Memorial Gardens. And that was a really diverse audience where for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, it was, moments of silence where people kneeled. Some people laid down in that position. And it was very emotional. When you sit there and you either lay down or you kneel or you stand or you just be quiet for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, you just feel you're in his moment and you see how long that really is and the pain and the agony that he was going through. It was just very, very emotional. So that's kind of how, I've channeled my energy to just do something positive, So that's kind of what I've been doing, since we last came together. But, and then also being very concerned as we were talking in our pre-show, North Carolina was on CNN just a couple hours ago about, our COVID numbers going up. So it's still a very, concerning time. Very concerning time. So as you know, I said this last time, but from the book of The Firm, that would be Acts 52 verse 53, because I'm 52, almost 53. As for me and my house, we're going to stay inside. And when we go outside, we will wear a mask.
A mask. Yes.
How are you doing, Miss Lady?
I'm doing good. As you know, I shared with my social media family how draining it all had been and just how this George Floyd incident has impacted all of us and how it kind of it woke us up and let us know that, what we've been taught we needed to do for equality, that we needed to do a lot more. And so it definitely is one of those times where it's been exhausting. I've had conversations at my place of work that I probably would have never had. And so I've been able to enlighten in some ways and be a part of some movement towards the folks in the company having some important dialogue. So that was great to have. But overall, emotionally, finding out that I wouldn't be able to return to work probably until later in the summer, and then thinking about Bree and all that she has been going through with the quarantine and not knowing where I'm going to send her for camps, we decided that we needed to change our venue a little bit, change where we've been. We've been quarantined for so long, and I have great friends that I was able to actually call them and say, hey, are you guys willing to get COVID-19 antibody tests? And they all agreed. We all got the test, and we decided to rent a house in Virginia Beach. And we pretty much have been doing the same thing that we always would be doing, which is working remotely, right? But just having some friends around and being able to laugh and dance, it's what my spirit needed at this time. But, at the same time, making sure that I'm sharing things on social media, that we're having dialogue and conversations, and hearing that, again, I'm having conversations with others of different colors and races has been important to me as well. So that brings us to this conversation today, right?
That's right. Although I have to say, I mean, like you left somebody at home. Like I was waiting for you to come by, pick you up, meet you something.
Okay, so for all the audience that's listening, you heard everything she did this week, right? I wish I could just pack her up, but with Pam being the firm, it's hard to get her up and pack her up and bring her.
Next time.
Yes, exactly.
And while we're here today,
yes.
we are excited.
Yes,
so tell us a little bit about why we're here today.
Oh man, we are super excited to be here today because we get a chance to talk to someone who embodies the topic that we're talking about today, which is the power of giving.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're so excited to actually be able to do that. Did you want me to introduce him, Pam, or are you going to?
No, I can do that. I can do that. The power of giving. And this man, he embodies that power of giving. Our next guest, we love this guy. I tell you what, Mr. Ryan Ray. He began his career in sales and marketing upon graduating from, we don't hold this against him at all, North Carolina State University in Raleigh, North Carolina, leveraging a strong work ethic and tenacity. He has since enjoyed a blossoming career across various industries, building an extensive background in organizational leadership, consulting, public speaking, team building and development, training, and fundraising. Prior to his role as the CEO of Jobs for Life, Ryan led the Triangle Entrepreneurial Leadership, which we know as TEL. He founded TEL in 2015 to create a safe haven for entrepreneurs to dream, to grow, and to lead their lives and businesses. Through TEL, Ryan has created a network of, check this out, over 5,000 learners, providing weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annual events serving hundreds of attendees. In addition to events, Ryan has mentored more than 30 small business owners in various stages of businesses. Now, as president and CEO, president and CEO, I love it. Jobs for Life, Ryan continues his mission of changing lives and transforming communities. He believes that in order to build any successful institution, we must first build its people. Ryan is a native of Dunn, North Carolina, and lives in Garner, North Carolina, with his lovely wife, Tamia, and their two sons, Isaiah and Austin. Please help me welcome Mr. Ryan Ray to the Art of Balancing It All. He's amazing. He's dope. He's debonair. He's the man on demand. He's our friend. I call him my tribe leader. Yes, my tribe leader. Our friend Ryan Ray. Hello, Ryan Ray.
What's going on, ladies? What a pleasure and a privilege to join you for the Art of Balancing It All. I've been watching and following you ladies. So proud. Such phenomenal content that you ladies provide for us. So I'm honored to be here and be able to share this space with you. And I'm looking at my screen and I see two shining stars. So my day's going very well now.
Thank you.
Man. Well, we are happy to have you here. We've been waiting to have you join us, and the timing could not be any better. But before we get started, we always want to do a wellness check, especially during these times. So how are you doing? How are you coping with the recent events? We're going through both pandemic and we're fighting systemic racism. So how has this all impacted you as a Black man and a father? And a husband?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking and checking in. It's not the first time I got that question in the midst of all of this, but it is interesting to see people pause and reflect before we get into the business or get into whatever those conversations have been as of late. It's an interesting time. You ladies worked with me on the Kobe Bryant event that we did back in February. And now I'm very introspective again. And I've been in this place for a while now of developing this discipline of being slow to speak, quick to listen, and really seeking to understand. And that's positioned me to be able to, I won't say embrace what we're going through, but I have been able to take a posture where I really want to understand, how is it that we're still having this conversation, 40 years later, 50 years later, but it's really been a 400-year journey. And when you look at how George Floyd's life was taken, it takes us back to when I was an elementary school kid, and in February, and our parents used to make us watch Eyes on the Prize. And I would leave, and on Thursday morning, I would go to school and I'd be mad and daring anybody to fight and touch me. And so, it's helped me to manage those emotions and really try to take a perspective as, man, how can we really begin to move the needle forward on this conversation? And so, for the first time, I've looked at this, I can take care of myself, and I can handle the consequences. You asked about my boys, of my decisions, if I'm in the right place, wrong time, or, I do something and I'm punished for it. But where it starts to grab my heart is that now I've got to raise two young boys, two young Black boys in this climate. And I don't live my life in fear, and I'm not going to raise them to live their lives in fear. And so it goes back to just trusting God and knowing that He's all in control. So.
That's good. Again, we thank you so much for joining us. When we first asked you to join us for the topic of building success with a giving mindset, we planned for a completely different show, right? As you can imagine, with recent events, this topic now takes on a completely different meaning, because giving of your time and your money and intellect can truly impact the world, the society, your community. So before we become laser focused on how giving has helped you with your personal success, we want to first have a conversation about how the importance of giving at this time will help move us forward in race relations, right? Yeah. So I'd like to start with a question about, what does giving look like to you during these times from the perspective of a Black man? And what do you think giving should look like for those of other races?
Wow, great question. I think giving looks like, really what I just said. It's being slow to speak, quick to listen, and truly seeking to understand. I saw a Facebook post. I didn't get it personally, but I saw a Facebook post of a pretty ridiculous comment, and I shared it with someone, and they said, did you unfriend them? Did you block them? And I was like, no, I didn't, because I want to understand that side too. So when you ask, what can we give? I think in this climate, we can give an ear to listen, because in America, she seems to be the mother of division. Right. And, everything's a isms: racism, sexism, classism. We got the right side and the left side of the aisle. We have all these things that point to division. And in America, it seems that in order for someone to win, someone else has to lose. Right. Like we can't exist together. And so I think to lend an ear to listen and understand. Let's listen to our children. Let's listen to our elders. Let's listen across the aisle. Let's listen to the upper, lower, middle class, wherever you are in that spectrum. Listen to the others so that you can better understand someone else's perspective. And just because of someone's opinion, perspective, the lens through which they look at life through, doesn't make them wrong, nor does it make you right. And so in a seeking to understand posture, we all learn and grow together. And so I believe that right now, no matter where you are in this scenario, just being able to give an ear and listen is how we make some progress in this.
That's good. That's powerful. So we talked about that you are the CEO of Jobs for Life, which we know is a Christian organization and is centered around uplifting humanity through your three words that we hear all the time: dignity of work.
Yes.
Which really hits home on a cause of the movement that Dr. Martin Luther King started with the fight for inequality and poverty. So what do you feel is needed to move the conversation forward and see significant strides in decreasing the number of Black men and women who are employed and living in poverty?
You know, I think I'm gonna talk about this tonight on another call, but
Okay.
it's embracing a long-term vision, a long-term strategy. Because for me, it always comes back to an economic conversation, right? It always comes back to a financial conversation. How have you positioned yourself to overcome the ills that plague America? And the justice system is not set up to protect poor people. It's not set up to protect people who don't have means, who don't have resources. And if you don't even get a chance to tell your story. And so I believe that as a community, we really, really need to begin having that economic conversation, developing the skills, the talents, which is why the whole giving thing is so big for me. And how do we help one another? It's that whole each one teach one, or reach back and grab one. And the more that we can pull and give them power, here you guys talk about the man himself, Mr. Jay-Z, he said, I can't help the poor if I'm one of them, right? So I went and got my own. And so that's kind of the conversation, is that the more of us that can come up and rise above the economic perils that face us, until we really begin having that conversation, I think we're stuck as it relates to what we control. Now, we can continue to fight justice, continue to fight the system, the systemic racism issues. But what can we do? We've got to begin to position ourselves economically.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. The reason we brought you, I want to give some background to our audience. The reason that we brought you on to the show was because I heard you recently during a virtual conference open up a little bit about how you were so successful in building this network of over 5,000 people who are entrepreneurs and learners and such. And I was surprised to hear you say that it started with you first learning the power of giving. So could you please provide our audience with a little bit of background on how you came upon this whole thing, that giving was so powerful that it could open up new doors for you?
Absolutely. I appreciate that setup there. Just a little backdrop. In 2003, I was at one of the heights, I'll say, of my career, was having a little success, got into a life-changing, life-threatening car accident, ended up losing everything, moving back home to Dunn. At that point in my life, I had probably read the cover of a book, had a college degree, but wasn't very well educated outside of traditional means. And so I was introduced to a guy who had success, and he said, Ryan, if you want to change your life, you got to start reading, you got to change your association. So it was at that time that I had embraced this whole new methodology of personal development, right? How can I become the best version of myself? Well, there's a saying of when the student is ready, the teacher appears, right? So after a few years of really just, I called it being in the lab, working on Ryan, building Ryan to develop the skills to be able to deliver value, I was introduced to a guy who had even more success, and he invited me out to an event out in Henderson, Nevada, just outside Las Vegas. And it was a 10-day forum. And when I got there, TT, I think this is what you heard me say a few weeks ago, from the moment I walked into this forum, everybody started asking me, how can I serve you? What do you need? Where do you feel stuck? Is your business where you want it to be? If not, how can we support you? And after 3 days of getting asked those questions, because I was really there as a guest, I wasn't really there to build a business at that point, I was overwhelmed. And so I literally stayed in on day 4, had to get myself together and figure out, how do I come and address these questions? Well, needless to say, it impacted me such that when I came back home, I actually was able to get this guy to come here and do an event. And so I hosted an event, and I launched Triangle Entrepreneurial Leadership really just to create a meetup, to get a few people in the room, because this guy said that he would come do some business coaching. And from that, Triangle Entrepreneurial Leadership began to grow and blossom. And I've just lived my life based on that philosophy. How can I serve you? How can I support you? Where do you feel stuck? What do you need? And that's been my life mission and message since that time.
Wow.
And that is you. You are amazing at that. You are such a giver, and what a powerful, powerful story. And you give. You give to your community, you give to your family, your network, your friends. It's just so powerful. But what ways do you give to others?
Wow. You know, it's always great to be able to bless someone financially, right? You know, to give the person a fish. To me, it feels even better to teach somebody how to fish, right? By giving them the tools, the resources, the knowledge, the education, which is what Triangle is all about. But then I take it a step further. When you can teach somebody how to own the pond, right? That's when it really gets good. And that's entrepreneurship. That's business ownership, and teaching people to be empowered. So, you know, the first thing is to really educate, equip, empower people, giving people inspiration. But more importantly, it's encouragement, right? You know, I've heard another mentor talk about, you know, being a professional cheerleader, right? Like, we need more professional cheerleaders in the world to just walk around and just cheer people on, just push people to their next step, give them the confidence and the belief in themselves, because as humans, man, we get beat up a lot. And everybody has something inside of them to deliver to the world, you know, a gift, a talent. God's given all of us some type of gift or talent, but a lot of times it's pressed up under life. And so helping people to begin to throw those rocks off of them is one of the places I really, really love to give and to support people.
Wow. And you're listening to Ryan Ray on The Art of Balancing It All. We are talking about building success with a giving mindset. So Ryan, Oprah was quoted saying one time, I remember, the reason I've been able to be so financially successful is my focus has never, ever for 1 minute been on money, which was shocking to me, right? So oftentimes, though, people shy away from giving because of that very reason, because they fear that they are going to be taken advantage of, that the transition will not happen from giving to actually making money. That's why some people are often resistant to giving. So what would you say to those who are allowing that to hinder them from really taking on and grasping a giving mindset?
Yeah, I mean, Oprah's exactly right. And it took me forever to really embrace that. You know, I was definitely blessed and fortunate to grow up in church. My mom taught me, you know, by force to start with. And I began to realize that by tithing and giving your offerings, there was blessings on the other side of that. So develop that discipline early. That was a tremendous blessing to help me to see that. But what I would say to people who are letting that mindset, and that's what it is, it's a mindset, it's a thinking. What I would say to them is, you know, I chose to live my life based on principles, right? There are laws that govern success in the world, right? There are laws of gravity, right? You jump off of a roof, you're probably going to hit the ground. That's a law, right? Then there are laws of sowing and reaping. That is a law. I planted a garden a few weeks ago, and I love just getting up in the morning, going out there, looking at it, watering it, and seeing it grow, because I love the principle of the sower. You know, we talk about the Bible, and, you know, when he put seed in the ground, all of them didn't come up, but some did. And so the principle says that when you sow seeds, when you put seed in the ground, something will come up. And what helped me to understand that is I used to hear people say all the time, man, the rich just gets richer and the poor gets poor. Well, the rich gets richer. Oprah gets richer because she is applying the principles. She's living by the laws that govern the success of finances. And so by giving and sowing those seeds, she's been able to reap the fruit of that. And, you know, so many times we live by emotion instead of right? So we'll look and say, okay, well, this is my situation. We get emotional about what we see, and then that blocks our faith. because giving without an expectation, giving without knowing what's on the other side of that is really faith. But you have faith in the law, you have faith in the principle. And when you can live your life from discipline instead of emotion, then it removes that fear or that hindrance from you beginning to live your life from a perspective of giving. And then I'll take it a step further and say, you know, if you came home any day of the week and just felt incredible about yourself, like you laid your head down at night and just felt overwhelmed, if you trace that day back, you served other people. You gave to other people. And if you had a frustrating day, it was probably all about you.
That is so good. Those are great nuggets. Wow.
Really good one. Yeah.
Coming from the role of a servant. That's a great caveat to my next question, because you're definitely a servant leader and you do just all the things that you just said. So my guess is that you come home most nights feeling incredible. As you should. But I want to talk about, do you come home ever feeling exhausted? Mentally and physically. And so with that, how do you maintain that giving mindset? And how do you maintain your well-being? And taking that a step further, what does self-care look like for Ryan Ray?
Yeah, good question. I mean, it's weird. I mean, yes, if you look at my calendar and my agenda, you know, it's not about me at all. So I don't even like talking about me. But if you looked at what I probably do and the things that I juggle and manage, it would probably seem to be overwhelming. But what I've learned is that, you know, when you're really living your life on purpose, and then you couple that with living based on principles. See, a lot of people, when you live your life on methods and techniques and trends, you know, your life is like this, right? Because you don't know when a trend is going to stop. You don't know when the next, you know, technique is going to implode, right? And so you have a lot of stress. You're like, okay, is that going to work, right? It's like in and out of the stock market, right? When you get in the stock market, you just got to get in, you got to lock in, and you got to ride it out, right? And that's another principle, right? Stock market is a long-term strategy. So it's the same thing with life. If you're living your life on principles and trusting the principles that govern success, then you just ride that wave, right? And then when you know that you're living on purpose, you don't burn out. Like people who aren't living their life on purpose burn out. Okay. When you're in purpose and you couple that with principles, right? Take the guesswork out of it, right? Now you're living by faith, not fear. Like when we live in emotional lives, that's where burnout comes in, right? When you're stressed and I'm burnt out and I mean, you just have to learn to live your life. Again, I always go back to that word of discipline. Right. And I'm still learning that. Right. Like I literally have a coach called the effectiveness coach. He coaches me on being effective. And his goal is to help me to get to the place where I turn it off at 5 o'clock. But I told him, like, I can't turn it off. It's always going.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm going to do if I turn it off at 5 o'clock. Right.
And I don't know those
write down what's in my head. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Not 5 p.m., 5 a.m. I just want to be able to turn it off by 5 a.m.
I will refer him to you. I think you can.
Oh my gosh. Can you please get his card now?
But yeah, and so that's been what's driven for me. You know, I built Triangle on the purpose of educating, empowering, equipping people. That's what I feel like I'm put here to do. Jobs for Life's vision and mission aligned with that. So I was able to just step it up a notch and continue to drive that. And then self-care, you know, I work hard and I play hard. You know, we was in the house for this pandemic forever. You know, at first I was like, man, this is the life. I can do this, right? Because I go so much that, you know, them 2 months, I was like, I'm chilling. But last Thursday, in the middle of the day, I told my wife, I said, I don't know, something just kicked in. I'm gonna need you to go pack a bag for the boys, and we're gonna pick them up from in-home care, and we're going to the beach. And so, I work hard, but I play hard too, and that's the self-care for me. Is having that thing on the calendar that I'm running towards. That I know, you know, I set goals, right, and then the achievement of those goals result in some type of reward or self-care or something. So it's balance, right? It's an art, you know, it's the art of balancing it all. There's an art and a science to it, but we're focusing on the art today.
That's right.
That's good. That's good. I do think that's why Pam is so driven and why she never gets, I mean, this woman barely sleeps, but everything she does is purpose driven, right? And I think that's what keeps her going, really keeps her going. I love Tony Robbins. I'm not sure if you're a Tony Robbins fan.
I am.
I have so many stories that I love from him. But one of the ones that I've incorporated into my life recently is how he talks about he learned that the key to living is giving. And if you know Tony, he started off with, this is my giving goal. So he started off with, I want to feed all of LA's homeless and so on and so forth. And in his initial story, he talks about how he found a euphoria that you were just talking about. He found that there was euphoria in actually giving to others, right? So he came home that day after he'd given to a young boy. And then right after that, he was in financial chaos and something came through immediately. We know someone, Tyree Lipscomb, who has he has been working tirelessly on his event planning and his DJ service. And earlier in the year, he started with, I'm going to give my services. And as he gave his services, his business just started booking more and more and more events. And so I was able to witness it there. But what are some ways that you have seen giving for you really be reciprocated and that it opened doors that otherwise, wouldn't have opened up?
Yeah, I mean, that's such a great question. And I'll share, the whole philosophy is, a lot of people give with an expectation of some type of exchange, right? Mm-hmm. I'll give you this, I want that back, right?
Yeah.
And in that scenario, that's your exchange, right? Mm-hmm. But when you give and have no expectation of something in return, you're giving based on the laws and the principles, then when God blesses you for that, there's no measure, right? Like you can't, when you go to the field and you put a kernel of corn in the ground, you don't get back a kernel of corn. You don't get back a stalk of corn. You get back a stalk with stalks, right? Like you can't even count it. And that's really what I've seen in my life since I've embraced that. And I'm loving this because you guys are challenging me now. Now I'm like, man, I probably haven't been given enough. I got to step my game up a little bit. But, I've seen it happen, right from the very beginning. I mentioned having moved back to Dunn after really having a very low point in my life. And I became very others focused, right? Prior to that, there's stages in our lives, right? 20s, up to your 20s, it's all about me, right? And then, 30s, 40s, you get family, it's all about we, right? Then later on in life, you live in a legacy, it's all about others, right? And so I began to move into that more of a we perspective. And when I really began to embrace this, probably back in 2004, 2005, I'll give it a great example. No, this is no stretch. Any job or opportunity or business or anything that I've participated in came to me. I didn't seek it out, right? Like if there was an application required, I already had the contract or had the role or had the position before I did the paperwork. Is that making sense?
Yes.
So doors begin to open that I didn't push open. They just swung open and I was able to walk in because of the seed planting. Again, it's the law of reciprocity, right? Those are laws. Right. And when you live your life based on those, you get those things in return. I think, there was a season in my life where I really pushed health and wellness. And I've been blessed up to this point to have good health. There's been times where I've really, pushed people to, start businesses, and I have a couple. So it's just a matter of where you plant seed is probably where it's going to grow. Right. And I can point to time after time where I've put seed in the ground. There's been fruit that we've harvested. So.
Absolutely.
Amazing. That's why you're one of our favorite people.
Yes.
My tribe leader.
It's music.
Ah, as they say, and you know, you alluded to that in the first part of that when you started talking, but you can't beat God's giving.
No, you can't. You can't. You
And
can't.
that's what he's been doing for you. So for my kind of my final question as a leader of influence, and you know, we got that church background, you know, that Dunn church background that you got. And when you think about all that we're going through, you know, now we've got two pandemics, right? We've got COVID-19 and we've got the racism, you know, pandemic. And how can you encourage, you know, the world as a leader? And so we're talking about giving, but you can't give without loving. And I'm trying to think of it, and it just came to me. Remember the song that said, "Love lifted me." You know,
Yes. Yes.
when nothing else could help, love lifted me. And I think of that when I think of you. You always lead with love, and so that, what kind of advice or encouragement in leading with love can you give us to kind of you know, to help us in this situation?
Yeah, great question. You know, it's funny. I was on the call earlier today with one of my board members, and we were just kind of talking about that. And you know, God gave us a very unique opportunity to care for others. And when you do not care or show concern for those who are less fortunate than you, it's hard to defend that you truly have a relationship with God. Whoever or whatever your God is, right? And your relationship should be a reflection of how you treat other people, be it the poor, be it the homeless, be it the unemployed, be it anyone who has challenges that you don't have. See, we weren't put here to serve our own needs, wants, and desires. We were truly put here to serve others. He said, who would be the greatest in the kingdom? Those who serve the many. And when we can begin to lead with and to serve, you right, you got the love, right? And love is patient. Love is kind, right? Love is all of these things that we don't really see displayed in the world. And of course, we're at the mercy of the media. I believe there are more people who love in the world than there are that who hate. But we see what gets the attention. But yeah, it's love. I mean, you just got to just loving and caring for people. And to do that, I mean, you just can't take yourself so serious. Right? Like you just gotta just let your guard down and just be okay. You know, I'm probably one of the more vulnerable people that I know. I mean, it is what it is. Yeah, I used to walk around with that pride and ego trip on my shoulder. But now it's like, you know, whatever it is, man. Like how can I make somebody else's day or life better today? And that's my purpose when I wake up. And so to be able to not just tell people to do that, but to live by that example, I think is what we need today.
Awesome.
That's good. We do have one final question for you. The question that we ask all our guests, especially those who are navigating so much. So do you actually think that it's possible to balance it all? The work, the family, the career, the friends, relationships, all that good stuff.
Great question. You know, I used to, you know, in my personal development journey, you know, there used to be these life balance wheels, and it was like, okay, well, where did these different areas of your life rank? Like, which is most important? Like, is it God and then family and then your work? Or is it then God, wife, children, work, church, right? How do you balance? Like, what takes priority? And when you're ready when you're ready, the teacher appears, right? And so then I always struggle with that. I was like, I don't know, like what the matters determines what day it is, what week is it, determines which one is important, determines, you know. And so when I saw this, it wasn't a wheel. Well, it was a wheel, but in the middle of that wheel, that circle, was God, right? And what it said was that it's not a matter of prioritizing the things in our life, but when we prioritize God, then the things in our life get the right amount of priority.
Wow.
Okay.
And because we can never, because some days work is going to be more important than family, but on paper that's wrong. wrong, right? And so
Right.
then we judge ourselves. Then we beat ourselves up and say, "Man, I didn't cut it today," right? But no, it's not a matter of those measures. It's a matter of when God is at the center, then God helps you to have the balance in all of those areas of our life. And so when He's the focus, all those other things, it lines up. It works.
And I think you have been the most profound answer that we've had thus far.
I tell you
That was
what. Oh my
definitely
God.
good. Yeah,
Well,
absolutely. Wow.
Oh my
I
God.
appreciate that.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I can say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, Ryan Ray. We could talk to you all day, but you are man on demand, so we got to let you go.
Yes, and sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I always measure the power, how powerful the show is by what it does for me, if it helps me. And I know this show, listening to you, has helped me in, just understanding and reminding me the power of giving. So I know it's helped somebody else because it helped me. So thank you again. We love you and we appreciate you.
Well, thank you, ladies. Listen, it is an honor and a pleasure. I appreciate you both. You both have been such an inspiration, a support, and encouragement to me. And I'm grateful for the relationship. I'm grateful for the friendship. So keep doing what you're doing. And any way I can serve and help and support you, I'm right here. Please.
And we know that to be true.
Yes.
So thank you. And that works both ways.
Absolutely. I know that.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, ladies. Take
Thank you
care.
so
The art of balancing it all.
Yes. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. So thank you for joining us this week on The Art of Balancing It All. Make sure to visit our website, theartofbalancingitall.com, where you can join our tribe and you can subscribe to the show, which is available on Podbean, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and now FB Live. We will be premiering this episode on Facebook as well. Be sure to subscribe so you'll never miss an episode.
That's right. Also, be sure to follow us on social media at The Art of Balancing It All on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. If you love the show, please let us know. Leave us a rating so we can continue to bring you amazing episodes. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.